And you are podcasting with Gary DeMar. Let's figure things out.
Welcome to the Gary DeMar podcast. I'm Eric. That's Gary. And Gary, recently you went to Pennsylvania. Is that right?
I went to a place north of Pittsburgh, east of Pittsburgh, south of actually New York. It's about a 2.5 to 3.5 hour drive from Pittsburgh, called Spring Creek.
Okay.
And it is called Miracle Mountain Ranch, where kids come in for maybe 8 months or so, and in the morning they have Bible study and kind of daily things on just kind of how to live, cooking, all of those things related to it. And then in the afternoon they deal with horses and
really?
It's real interesting, real interesting.
Okay, and that's when you also met up with Jerry Boyer and
I met Jerry in Pittsburgh.
Okay,
so I flew into Pittsburgh, and the next day I went over to Jerry's house and we sat down like you and I are sitting right here with two microphones. His wife Susan is taking care of all the editing process and so forth, and we talked about his book. The Maker versus the Takers on economics, which if you haven't listened to it yet, you really need to, because it's a very, very impressive. Jerry's impressive in and of himself, but this particular book is a little different in the way someone approaches the New Testament, and it's related in a way to what I want to do with a brief commentary on the book of Revelation.
Okay, so that's what this is going to be about. So after you met with Jerry, you recorded those. You went to this. What was it, Miracle Ranch? Miracle
Mountain Ranch in Spring Creek, Pennsylvania.
And
it was like 22 degrees out of snow and ice and so forth. So fortunately, growing up in that area, I was pretty capable of handling all that. And I gave 4 talks. It was a little frustrating because you can't cover the book of Revelation in 4 talks. Jim Jordan, before he actually gets into the exposition of the book of Revelation in his 204 talks, spends 7 talks just introductory work.
Yeah.
So, and I'm dealing with an audience of young people, very great group. I mean, they were a great group, very attentive. No one fell asleep. Anytime I see someone about to fall asleep, that's where I concentrate on. If I can keep that person awake, then I know that I'm at least being interesting. So, but the only thing they really knew anything about was the rapture.
Okay.
And I said, if what I was telling them, they really didn't know anything about.
And this is what, like 16, 17-year-olds?
No, they're older than that. I think they're probably 18 to 20, early 20s.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's interesting that a lot of the people who are working there, they were there as young people as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So they want to move into the apprenticeship process, which more and the trades. They want to get into the trades, welding and carpentry and plumbing and electrical work and all these trades that no matter how we're doing technologically, these things have to be done.
This is a wide open opportunity for the church to do this worldwide.
Yeah.
So we need to have whoever the director is up there.
I told Daniel Benedict, he's a fellow who invited me up, that I want to do a podcast with him.
Yeah.
And I was talking with a friend in church on Sunday, Lindsey Tippins.
Right.
He's my next door neighbor. He's also a state
representative. Or is he senator?
Senator. He's senator. He's state senator, and he has a construction company. And I said, I see your sign up again, looking for people to work. He said, well, he's just trying to get people to work. I said, well, Lindsey, you must be paying good money. He said, yeah. I said, we got some guys who are making $70,000 a year.
Wow.
And they're down from 32 employees to 24 employees.
Okay.
That work has to be done. That, right. I mean, that is
infrastructure work.
That is never going to change. Right. And a lot of people coming in, they're going to have certain skills. I remember one fellow used to come over here actually buy books from us. I think he was a welder. I mean, you're a welder today. You're going to get a job. Yeah. We have a good friend of ours who worked here. Her son ended up becoming a diesel mechanic.
Okay.
You're going to be working in that field.
Yeah.
So anyway, I went up there, and did 4 talks on the Book of Revelation, but the first 2 talks were more or less introductory.
All right.
And as a result of my particular perspective, lots and lots of questions. I think the 4th session were questions, and I just realized there was no possible way I was going to get through 20 chapters. So I just picked kind of the big things, the big questions people ask about the Book of Revelation: the mark of the beast, and the timing issue, and symbolism and literalism and all that sort of thing. And so when I got back, I thought, I really need to go through the Book of Revelation chapter by chapter,
Okay.
not verse by verse. I'm not going to do a 204 talks that Jim Jordan did. I couldn't do it anyway. Or I think the 100 that Greg Bonson did.
Yeah.
Or write 2 volumes in the soon to be but not to be published commentary by Ken Gentry. And by the way, that's not his fault. I mean, this has been done for quite some time. It's the editing process. I won't even get into all that. So I thought, what is the best way to approach this book? And so what I'm hoping to do is to go through the Book of Revelation as that first hearing and reading audience would have understood it or tried to understand it.
And one of the important things that Jim brings out in his introductory talks leading up to the book is that look, it's no accident that Matthew comes first, and then Mark, and then Luke, and then when they canonized the Scripture, they put books in a particular order for a reason,
right?
And that's how we're supposed to read them. We're supposed to read them in that order. There's a reason why the Book of Acts follows the Gospels. It helps tie all these things together, and then it's the outline for all of Paul's letters.
Oh, you got the history.
Yeah.
You got the history, the confrontations, all of that, and you have Paul's letters, and you can fit them in.
Right.
And I think even, I forget who, I think it's John Lightfoot who attempts to make that case that here we are here, and here's Paul's letter here, and he never did finish. I think he's got as far as probably through 1 Corinthians. But yeah, you're right. I mean, the Book of Revelation is kind of the capstone of the Bible,
Right.
But here's the question. Here's the question: what did the early church, those 7 churches, have at their disposal to understand what was revealed to them?
Okay.
Let's ask the other side of the question. What didn't they have?
Okay.
I know some people believe that the Book of Revelation was written in AD 95. To me, that just makes no sense at all, and I'll explain all that when I get to that point. I believe it was written before the destruction of Jerusalem in AD 70. It makes much better sense of things. But what didn't they have? Mm-hmm. They had no commentaries. Think about that. No commentaries. The destruction of Jerusalem hadn't taken place yet, but at the same time, Matthew, Mark, and Luke talk about the destruction of Jerusalem was going to take place. But that was in their mind. I believe in 2 Peter 3 that you're finding the same thing. In fact, all through the epistles, you're seeing these references as to what was going to take place before that generation passed away. But you had the 3 Gospels that were, Jim Jordan says, look, Matthew, when I was in seminary, the dating of all these different books was well, this was written after the destruction of Jerusalem in the late 80s or the 90s and so forth, and that just didn't make sense to me. Why wait so late to get the message out, to people? Right. Seems to me that Jim makes the case that Matthew's gospel was probably written very early, right, and Mark's as well, and Luke. Look, Luke's gospel had to have been written early because it was used, I believe, as a defense for Paul as Paul went around and all this, is that Luke was probably writing the book of Acts while
and interviewing eyewitnesses.
Yeah. So all this material probably had circulated by then. So to me, they had 3 things going for them. They had preaching that was available to them. They had the Old Testament both in Hebrew and Greek. You had a Greek translation of the Old Testament, the Septuagint. That was probably what they used more so than the Hebrew scriptures. In fact, a lot of the quotations from the Old Testament found in the New Testament are from the Septuagint.
Okay.
So they had that.
And maybe a smattering of a letter from Paul or something.
Yeah, where they might have had some of the epistles.
Yeah.
They may have had that as well. And so that's basically what they had.
Yeah.
And they, of course, had the Old Testament genre of eschatological literature.
Okay.
So when they saw sun, moon, stars, they could go back and say, well, I mean,
Right.
that's not unusual. We understand that.
Right.
I mean, they may not have understood it all, but well, that's in the Old Testament. Let's
Yeah.
go back and look at the Old Testament. Or the number 666. Well, we've seen that before.
Sure.
Even if you did not identify it with Nero Caesar, if you go back and look at 1 Kings chapters 10 and 11, oh boy, there's something going on here
Right.
between what Solomon does in chapter 10, which is a violation of everything related to what kings should not do, and also then his marriage to the nations,
Right.
something he should not have done.
Right.
That's exactly what you find in the book of Revelation, in that the Romans, the apostate Jews, colluded with Rome.
Yeah.
That's
what Solomon was doing with the nations.
Yeah.
That's what Herod was doing with Rome.
Yeah.
And then you read in the book of Revelation where it says, "Here is wisdom."
Yeah.
Calculate that. So I mean that the number, and then the fact that Solomon was the wise man, right?
Right.
Everybody, the Queen of Sheba came to him. All these people were coming to him because of his wisdom. So the book of Revelation talks about wisdom. That there's a connection to Solomon there, and what was going on there, and all of the the context of that whole of his disobedience, of taking the gift that God had given him, and now he's
squandering
now
it.
He's basically pimping it out to the nations.
Yeah, and we see in the when Pilate said, "Should I crucify your king?" and the leadership said, "We have no king but Caesar," and so now again, so what you just said comes from just familiarity with the Bible,
With the Bible itself,
With
yeah. Letting the Bible when you see a very strange number, 666, 3 sixes in a row, 666. I mean that's pretty precise.
Yeah, that is. Yeah,
that's not 650-ish. It's 666. So when that's there, it's kind of hard to think that, well, like was 147 fish that they catch.
right. Yeah,
I
don't think that was that the number, but anyway,
it's something, but it's something very specific like that, and commentators over the years have like, what was, because it's not just we caught a lot, or we caught a little, or we caught this amount.
There's some significance to that, and in fact, you go through the book of Revelation, and for the most part, you see 7s and 10s and 12s.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, you see this number 666, and the only other place it's used in the Bible, other than the page number 666 in your Bible, is in First Kings chapter 10. And then there's also kind of some parallels, to this. In Daniel, you got the metal man in Daniel, and you got the real metal man in the book of Revelation, chapter 1.
Mm-hmm.
And that crazy thing at the end, the iron mixed with clay, and you think, well, wait a minute, who are the clay people in the Bible? The clay people are the land people in the Bible. That's Israel.
Mm-hmm.
Iron is, if it's the fourth kingdom, is Rome. And so you got this trying to, the foundation of these kingdoms ultimately coalescing in Rome. Very, very shaky foundation.
Right.
So what ends up happening, Israel is judged, Rome is eventually judged, and so forth. So what I'm hoping to do with this is to help me and help readers and listeners of what we do here at American Vision, is to say, okay, let's follow the process. What was available to the early church when they first got the the manuscript of the Book of Revelation, what constraints are in the Book of Revelation itself in that time period that forced them to interpret the Book of Revelation in terms of those things.
Okay.
So that's what I'm hoping to do.
So you did these 4 lectures, basically 3, and then a Q&A
Right.
session, right? So are you saying you're going to use those as a springboard to do more
the
like that?
The first 2, I think I talked to Jake Litwin, who does our video work for us. He's going to chop those up, and which will give me some time to start. Okay,
this. so those are kind of like teasers.
Those are going to be introductory,
yeah,
because
okay.
the first part is I lay the groundwork, and I'll probably end up going through some of that groundwork as I go through these chapters, especially the first 3 chapters. The second one is the 4 different approaches to the Book of Revelation,
okay.
Which is the most popular, of course, is the futurist. Almost everything in the Book of Revelation is future, especially from chapter 4 on. The historicist position, which says that the Book of Revelation is describing the war between Christ and the world throughout history, and that supposedly, if you go through chapter by chapter, you can find the end of the Roman Empire, the rise of Islam, and so forth. And supposedly, as one historicist said, we're in Revelation chapter 17 right now.
Okay.
Well, according to historicists, we've been in Revelation 17 for hundreds of years, because that's about the Roman Catholic Church, and they see the Pope as the Babylonian, the false religion in Revelation chapter 17 and 18. Historicism was very popular during the time of the Reformation, because you had the Roman Catholic Church, the apostate church, and they saw all these things, but they got the timing wrong.
Yeah.
They refused to pay attention to the time indicators. The other one is the idealist perspective, where everybody's an idealist when it comes to interpreting the Bible.
Right.
In this sense, just because a prophecy has been fulfilled doesn't mean it doesn't have application beyond its initial fulfillment.
Right.
And then the fourth one is the preterist position. The preterist position is kind of an amalgamation of the preterist, that is, that these things in the Book of Revelation were taking place soon. Time is near. These things must shortly take place. And the idealist, which means like, hey, you go to Revelation chapter 13, you got the sea beast and the land beast, and you say, well, wait a minute, we believe that was fulfilled prior to the destruction of Jerusalem in AD 70. And here's the reasons why, and how. There's still beasts today.
Well, yeah, and just think about the age, then the era that we live in. You have a government who's clamping down and telling churches not to open, not to meet because of a virus. So that just because we find fulfillment in the preterist interpretation, just like we find fulfillment in the first coming of Christ, we don't look at all that and say, never loses its relevancy.
Exactly. And even though Matthew chapter 24, Mark 13, Luke 21 were fulfilled in the destruction of Jerusalem in AD 70, you go to Revelation chapters 2 and 3, and there's the warning to these 7 churches, which representative of churches at any time and anywhere. Same thing could happen to you, sort of thing. So that's going to be my approach. I'm going to try to say, look, let's kind of stick with the time and what was accessible to the early church and how they might have read and tried to understand the book of Revelation.
Okay. So when do you think, time frame, when do you think the book of Revelation was probably written?
It's probably written during the time of Nero, maybe AD 664.
Okay.
Somewhere in around there, and there's kind of a range. It had to be written in enough time to issue a warning to the church, and also had to be written in terms of what was still then existing, and that was the temple was still standing.
Right.
And if you look at 2 Peter chapter 3, the scoffers, what were they? Why were they scoffing?
Yeah.
They were scoffing because not only was the temple still standing, but it looked better than ever.
Yeah.
It was the epitome
It was complete.
It was complete. The Herodian temple was complete. And it said, Jesus said this thing was going to be destroyed. And look, the whole time he's been saying that this thing was going to be destroyed, it kept looking better and better and better.
Right.
And so you have to confine it, I think, to that period of time.
Okay.
I don't think an exact date can be found. I'm sure people have tried to do that. I'm not going to try to do all these little details. I'll leave that to people who have written very detailed commentaries on the Book of Revelation. This is kind of a first reader's guide to understanding the Book of Revelation.
Okay, so we'll release a couple. We'll certainly use the ones that you did up in Pennsylvania for future podcast episodes. But as Gary records these and we get these, and I guess maybe we'll transcribe them too.
Yeah, I'll probably end up do an outline first and then write them out. It's a little bit like Doug Wilson has done this a little bit with his When the Man Comes Around, which is just really it's very good. It's a good start.
But it doesn't seek to be a be all end all commentary on the Book of Revelation at all.
No, and mine won't be either. But mine will make more connections with different parts of the Bible.
Right.
That's what I'm going to try to do. So, I see this here. You see this woman in Revelation chapter 12, sun, moon, and stars. Where did we see that elsewhere?
Yeah.
And pull that together.
All right. So look for that this year. Next
year.
Well,
is this going to play 2022?
Yeah, right.
Okay. You're ahead of me. Okay.
This will probably play. This should be the first podcast that we run in 2022. So Happy New Year. But yeah, for this year we have lots of projects coming up, lots of new products, lots of ideas. Now we need lots of help. So we need financial help, and we need workers. We need researchers. We need indexers. We need all sorts of people who can do stuff, Gary.
Yeah, I know. We do. I know. If we had basically it's you and me.
That's right.
People don't realize that, but I'm the only employee at American Vision. American Vision hires Eric to do stuff that I don't want to do or can't do. So anyway, yes, we are probably the leanest and meanest ministry out there, and we've learned there was always a thing in American Vision is that you have to be able to do 5 things before you can work here.
Right.
We're not hiring you just to do one thing.
Right. That's right.
It's going to take at least 5.
Yeah, and if you don't know how to do it today, you'll learn how to do it tomorrow.
That's right. And I don't ask anybody to do anything in the process that I haven't done.
That's right.
When I came to American Vision, I didn't know anything about typesetting.
Yeah.
I didn't know nothing, all that sort of thing. And you go with it. You learn.
Yeah. So again, Happy New Year. Welcome to 2022. We will keep plugging along with the Gary DeMar podcast. We thank you for listening. If you have questions for future shows, email podcast@americanvision.org, podcast@americanvision.org, and we'll catch you next time.
Thanks for podcasting with Gary DeMar. Please subscribe and share this with anyone you think really needs to hear it.